Hello, welcome back to Crushing Sounds. My name is Chris, and I'm so excited to have another amazing interview today. I'm only joined by Serena Cherry of the amazing band Svalbard and new solo project Noctule, hot off their blistering set at this year's Bloodstock Festival. Thank you so much for joining me today, Serena. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm good, thanks. Just ready for the weekend.
Absolutely, I'm sure we can all agree with that. So, yeah, I want to get the obvious question out of the way. I'm sure you've been asked this a million times before, but where did the name Svalbard come from?
Have you read His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman?
It's on my to read list, but I have not read it yet.
Well, Svalbard is actually a setting in that trilogy of books. And when we formed the band, the three of us happened to be reading those books at the same time. And we were sort of texting each other all words from the books, like, oh, what about this is a band name, this is a band name. And then I think one of us just went, what about Svalbard? And then we all went, yeah, okay. But yeah, we were all reading His Dark Materials at the same time of forming the band. So that's
Fair
where it
enough.
came.
Yeah, I love reading fantasy stuff. I'm obsessed with it. I know you love power metal as well, so I just love fantasy stuff. But I'll get to Dark Materials one day. But I'm currently stuck with the Wheel of Time. It's taking a long time to read that, son of a bitch. But anyway, so I've already mentioned Bloodstock. It's kind of a crushing sounds drinking game. How quickly can I mention Bloodstock? Because we're very Bloodstock heavy around here for good reason. It's the greatest festival ever. But anyway, I know it's over a month ago at this point, but how did that set go for you guys? You look like you're having the time of your lives up there.
It was one of the best days of my life. Like, I love Bloodstock. I actually went to it when it was back when it was an indoor festival. So I've been like a fan of the festival for many years and seen so many of my favorite bands there. So to be able to play Bloodstock on the Ronnie James Dio stage was a total. It sounds cliche, but it was a dream come true for me. And for that to be our first gig that we played live in over a year, I mean,
Of course.
what a return, you know. I
Yeah,
couldn't have
absolutely. Are you able to? Because I've not interviewed someone who played main stage of Bloodstock before. Do you get a chance to like check out other bands the day that you're playing?
Well, we all stayed for the whole festival, and we were all down the front for Cradle of Filth. We did like a group Svalbard crowd surf when Cradle played from the Cradle to Enslave, and
Fantastic.
we watched Devon Townsend, who was amazing. I watched Fellowship, and yeah, managed to catch quite a few bands. The Wild Hearts, yeah, loads of good stuff. So yeah, it was really nice to be able to stay for the full weekend and make the most of it.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And because as I say, we're a very Bloodstock centered channel, so to get back there after way too long was just like the best weekend ever. And obviously, we checked you guys out. You guys were absolutely fantastic. I recommended before the festival that people go check out Svalbard because they got amazing music, definitely a band to check out. And we came away going, okay, people need to check out this band if they've not done so already. You guys were absolutely phenomenal, and as I say, the just your enthusiasm for it was so apparent, and that's really cool to see. So yeah, amazing set.
Oh,
So no worries. So, other than Bloodstock, of course, one of the things that we love to discuss on this channel is the Bristol heavy metal scene. It's something that we're extremely passionate about. I lived in Bristol for a few years. It's kind of where I got my start, and we love meeting bands from that scene, which is why I'm very excited to meet you today because you're kind of one of Bristol's big metal success stories. It's Svalbard, Onslaught, flying the flag for Bristol heavy metal. Is it still a local scene that you engage in?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got Griffest going on this weekend, which is obviously a fantastic way to see local metal talent. I always think, people who aren't from Bristol don't realise quite how many amazing metal artists are about in Bristol in the scene and how diverse it is. You've got bands like Embodiment, bands like all kinds of different stuff. Basement Torture Killings, like so many good stuff, so many good bands from Bristol. So yeah, I'm like really like uh, really into it and go to as many gigs as I can. And it's a great scene. And you've got Black City Records, which just opened as well, which is the heavy metal record shop, and that place, honestly, I just go in there and sit on the sofa and read through all the old copies of Terrorizer and Metal Hammer, because like they've just got so much great stuff in there. It's a really, really good shop, and I think they've done these new shirts called Bristol's Metal Quarter, where it's like got the Griffin and Black City Records like all mapped out and things. So
Yeah,
I think there is a great metal scene in Bristol.
yeah, definitely.
It's not all just trip hop and Banksy.
Yeah. So I know the guys from Black City Records. I've spoken to them on a number of occasions, and I'm not saying that this was because of me, but I did record Dias Holocaustum. I don't know if you know about them. They did a show at Black City Records, which I recorded and then interviewed them afterwards. And then we talked about how we're in Bristol's Metal Quarter. 2 weeks later, those T-shirts comes out. So I'm not saying that that was because of me, but it was definitely because of me. So if they're watching, I want my royalties in the post, please, boys. But anyway, so yeah. Obviously, you've got a UK tour starting very, very soon. I believe starting in November, if I've got that right. And of course, you're ending it in Bristol, which of course is awesome. When was the last time you played a show in Bristol?
Oh wow! Now there's a question. I'm gonna have to think back. It would have been the Fleece with Cult Leader in 2019. Oh no, it wasn't. Tell a lie. Sorry, I forgot. We played the Thekla with Envy in December 2019, and that was really good. That was the first date of our tour with Envy. And before we actually went on that tour, like 5 years before, someone interviewed me and said, "Who would be your dream band to go on tour with?" And I said, "Envy." And then 5 years later, we're there playing at the Thekla with them. So that was really amazing. I love that band.
Awesome. But essentially, it's been too long, so it's a great place to finish the tour off the new album. We'll get to the new album in just a little bit. I say new album, it's newest album, as it were. So let's talk about your music. And I found this particularly exciting to research because I believe yours is the first band I've interviewed where you have your own Wikipedia page. Don't worry, my research is way more extensive than Wikipedia, I promise. However, I did want to take the opportunity to gauge your reaction to how Wikipedia describes your sound, because it's not always notoriously bad at that kind of thing. So this is what Wikipedia says about Svalbard. Their style integrates disparate influences, including post-rock and black metal. Svalbard place their work within the categories of alternative, crust, hardcore, metal, punk, rock, hardcore, post-rock, post-hardcore, post-metal, black metal, and emo. That's a lot of genres. I'm sure you'll agree.
Wow, that is too many genres.
They love that. They throw every genre you can possibly think of, because one of them's got to be right, surely.
Yeah, they just can't get wide, aren't they, with that one?
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting one. I think maybe it's to do with people in the band's personal taste in music, but I always associate us as a metal band, like kind of post-metal with post-rock influences. There is definitely black metal influences that I bring into the band, but I wouldn't say we are a black metal band. But those are definitely the three kind of genres closest to our sound for me, will be post-rock, black metal, and post-metal. So it's really interesting to me because we get described hardcore and punk a lot, and I don't even listen to like punk or hardcore. I mean, I get that we have DB, which would be probably where the crust kind of tag comes from. But yeah, it's just really strange that like a lot of people describe us as hardcore punk or emo. I mean, wow, where does that
You ever been called emo before?
No.
So I can kind of see where the hardcore comes from, but I think post-rock, post-metal thing, I think is probably the most apt way to describe Svalbard. Also epic, I think, as well. Just like the way you layer the instruments, a lot of reverb stuff going on. It's got a very huge sound for, the typical guitar, bass, drums kind of setup. So I think epic post-metal, if we can make that a thing, we'll see what happens. So, yeah. So your albums all have very hard-hitting, no-nonsense, punch you in the gut approach to the music, not just in the sound, but in the themes and the lyrics as well. Were there any bands you drew inspiration from when forming this sound, or did it just come to you naturally?
It's a weird one. I think we all draw influences from different places. Like I said before, I'm sort of come from a black metal kind of background. Liam, our guitarist, then who does have the other half of the vocals, he comes from like a sort of more like death metal-y kind of background, and then the same with our drummer as well, like, and he used to play in a thrash band and stuff, so we've got like all different kinds of influences. And I'm one of those people, like, I never sit down with my guitar and go, I'm going to write a riff that sounds like this. Like, I kind of liken the creative process more like being possessed, and it's like a voice that comes to you in your head and tells you what to play, and you just have to chase that idea until it formulates. But so I don't really, it's a weird one. I'd say our sound doesn't necessarily come from the three of us kind of calculating how it should be, but rather us kind of bouncing off of each other and meeting in this weird, strange place in the middle that's like a hard-hitting amalgamation of, you know, black metal, post metal, maybe, yes, some aspects of hardcore, because I know Liam and Mark definitely like some hardcore and stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting writing process.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine. So from the sound of like your earliest singles that one can find online, it sounds like that you've got the sound of Svalbard there right from the word go. It's only just gotten more and more refined as the years have gone on. So how quickly was this sound developed? Did you go through various different sounds, or were you just straight in there, you know exactly what you were doing?
It was pretty quick, because I can tell you how it happened. I used to do a solo project where it was one of those wanky solo loop things where I had a loop station and I would layer loads of stuff up, kind of like soundscapey Sigur Rós style thing. And I was on tour with a prog band from Bristol called Anta, who were great. And Liam was driving them on that tour in their van. And I opened up for them the first night of that tour. And Liam watched my set. He was wearing a Dying Fetus shirt. And he
Nice.
was like, oh, I want to do exactly what you're doing, but metal and like heavy. And I was like, sick Dying Fetus shirt. Let's talk. And, yeah. So it was kind of, he heard what I was doing solo wise and had all these other ideas of like making it really heavy, making it, you know, faster and more dynamic. And we just started riffing together, and like, you know, when something just falls into place and you can't explain it. We've both been in lots of different bands before, but like the working relationship that I have with both Liam and Mark, it's a very kind of like, we just know what each other wants from the music, which is great.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So the music and lyrics of Svalbard are often pointed out for how, I don't want to say unapologetic, that might not be the right word, but there's very little holding back on very dark, very serious, very real topics. You don't dress anything up. Like songs like Revenge Porn doesn't wax poetics. It's about the horrific act of revenge porn. Feminazi talks about being shunned and degraded as a woman when you speak out about things. And even just reading the title of the song, What Was She Wearing? You know, that hits pretty damn hard. I can see how that blunt approach can be quite uncomfortable for some people. Was the plan to always be this direct about these kind of things?
No, that wasn't my original plan, and it was definitely something I grew into the more confident I became in this band as a lyricist. So if you listen to the earlier stuff, it's a bit not obvious what the songs are about. Like, we have an older song called um, Open the Cages, and that song is about immigration rights, but you wouldn't know because the lyrics are quite like poetically written and vague. And then how it came about that I sort of deliberately decided to take a more hard-hitting approach with my lyrics was, at the time I was working as a music journalist at Terrorizer magazine, and every time I'd interview the bands and I'd be like, what are your lyrics about and stuff, And it was just always like super vague. And even when they did have really kind of like interesting topics that were behind the songs, I'd go back and listen to the songs and the lyrics, and I'd go, wow, you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that unless you
Sure.
asked. And I thought, I want to remove this ambiguity. I want it to be that anyone can read these lyrics and know exactly what I'm saying, what I stand for, and things like that. And like with my lyrics, I don't know, and vocally, I would kind of liken it as in metal, there's obviously a lot of shouting, and I'm not really shouting at people. I'd say I'm shouting for people. And when you look at it like that way, that explains the directness of my lyrics. But I do think, yeah, I think for kind of as heavy and blunt and direct as metal can be musically, sometimes the lyrics get lost in the kind of quagmire of, you know, goblins and swords and hell and Satan and stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of break out of that mold a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I think it all has the effect because bands like, say, I don't know, Cannibal Corpse have very aggressive and shocking lyrics, but it almost moves into the sort of entertainment sphere, like horror movies, that kind of thing. Your lyrics, not that they're not entertaining, do feel very real and very sincere. How do you think you're able to achieve that?
Well, I write every day and just write about things that have cheesed me off, or you know, things that are weighing on my mind. And then when it comes to doing the lyrics for Svalbard, I go back through, almost like going back through a diary, and I pick out all the things that really stuck with me or really kind of seemed to hit home and make a point that was wider than the scope of my own life. And I think about things like, when I was a 15-year-old girl, what would I need to hear? Like, what would I need a band to tell me right now about, like, you know, what's okay and what isn't okay and stuff like that. So there's kind of, yeah, it's very much like, I liken, when you read my lyrics, it's like you're reading my diary. And in a lot of ways, sometimes it can be like bearing your heart a little bit too much on your sleeve, because people can read the lyrics to our latest album and know a lot of like traumatic stuff that I've experienced. But then when we play shows and I see people shouting the words back, or people talking to me afterwards and explaining how a song and the lyrics have helped them through a similar thing, then it's like that power of resonance is so worth it.
Yeah, cool stuff. I like the way you put that, like reading through a diary, because now that you mentioned that, that does sound, that almost, yeah, perfectly encapsulates the kind of lyrics that you guys write. Although also just reading through some of the song and album titles that you've done, I haven't read titles as bleak as these. When I listen to the band The Body, you got stuff like One Day All This Will End, It's Hard to Have Hope, and When I Die Will I Get Better. But is bleak the right word? Would you describe your music as bleak?
I think it's more like raw honesty. And to me, one day all this will end is like positive and negative, because you think,
Sure.
oh, one day all the bad stuff will end, one day all the good stuff will end, all of it's going to end. So it's kind of like positive and negative at the same time. It's Hard to Have Hope is about, again, like to put a more positive spin on it, it's about, you know, it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to keep hope alive, but if you fight for it, you can retain it. And then When I Die Will I Get Better, I think is a more bleak one, because I was super depressed when I wrote that album.
Yeah.
And that title relates to depression and how, you know, when things get really bad, it can seem that, you know, dying is a way out and like a way to relieve yourself from mental illness. So yeah, I guess bleak for the third album.
Sure. It sounds like it's like almost like game of two halves thing going on. Kind of, you can draw different things coming out of it, which, you know, that's kind of the point of music in the first place, really. But so we've referenced your newest album, When I Die Will I Get Better. Congratulations with it, by the way. It is a phenomenal album. Seriously cut me to the core. So good. What went through your head when Metal Hammer voted it one of the best albums of 2020?
I was so surprised. Yeah, it was amazing, especially considering one of the tracks on the album is called Clickbait, and
I was gonna. We'll get back to that.
and that was about a certain article on a Metal Hammer website. So yeah, I was really amazed, like stuff like that. Whenever I see our album being like acclaimed in the press or receiving these great reviews, it's like I have to sort of pinch myself, because I've been reading Metal Hammer since I was 12 years old, and to see my band's name listed on the top albums of last year was just unreal. Like, it made absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I'll bet. As I say, incredible album. You've mentioned already that you were dealing with quite a lot of hardship behind the scenes writing that album. Obviously, I won't ask for specifics or anything, but was writing the album a way to help deal with all that was going on?
Definitely. It's a strange one, because at the time it didn't feel like that. Like, at the time it just felt like I have these lyrics and I have this music, and this is just what's, coming out of me at the time, like idea wise. And then it was only after we recorded it that I kind of viewed it as, oh wow, this just feels like taking a bad situations that I was in, and I don't regret them anymore because I have these songs from them. Like, you could have a song like Open Wound, which is about an abusive relationship, and you go, oh, I feel differently about it now because I have this song. And this song can make other people feel less alone as well with what they go through. So it's that kind of, I guess it's transformative. You can take something bad and sort of create it into something beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, incredible album. So yeah, and I can't wait to hear what new music you guys come up with, hopefully very shortly. So I wanted to get into some questions regarding the ongoing debate around women in heavy metal, that kind of thing. Debate's probably the wrong word, but the discussion around that. You've not been shy about this topic in the past, as I'm sure people are aware. So I wanted to just get your perspective, because from my perspective, it felt like to me a couple years ago, there was an attempt in the metal presses to discuss and maybe tear down the label of female fronted metal. I remember back in like the early to mid 2000s, in the wake of bands like Evanescence, for example, the term was just slapped onto any band with a female in the front, trying to make them sound like all the same kind of thing, really. But with these new discussions around the issue, it felt like to me that maybe the balance was being addressed. But as a guy, I know I can't really know that experience. So very loaded question coming at you now. What is your experience as a woman leading a heavy metal band? Is it as bad as it might have been 10 years ago, or are things starting to improve?
Things are definitely improving. I have lots of horror stories from 10 years ago when we started Svalbard, of being groped at my own shows, and I've been loading in stuff. Or just receiving lots of kind of backhanded compliments, arriving at shows and promoters assuming that you're not in the band, that you're the girlfriend, and not letting you into your own show. Like, people trying to kiss you, someone taking upskirt photos of me when I was playing on stage. Had lots of different various crappy things happen to me that didn't happen to my male bandmates. But it's definitely getting better. One of the things that I'm really excited about is just how many amazing women we do have in metal right now. Like, even take Bloodstock, for example. Like, on a couple of bands after us was Venom Prison, with like Larissa and her amazing vocals. And then Employed to Serve just released their killer new record today, which I'm super excited for. Bands like Ithaca. There's just so many. It's got to, and like with our UK tour that's coming up, I said I want bands with women in as on tour with us. And I tell you what, it wasn't hard. We've got Harriet, who are amazing, and Drop, who are amazing. So like, I just feel like the power of representation is getting it more and more. And so as soon as it's more normalized to see women in bands, to see women on big metal stages, then the less these sexist attitudes are going to occur. The less people are going to say to me, what's a pretty girl like you screaming in a band for? That kind of stupid comment. But going back to about female fronted, it's an interesting one because I kind of see two sides to the coin with that. Because a lot of people I know will make playlists like, oh, female fronted bands, or Spotify do their Heavy Queens one. And it's interesting because, we've been on that playlist, and there's bands who sound nothing like us on that playlist, like Evanescence and The Pretty Reckless and stuff like that. So part of me goes, is this like positive discrimination in the sense that you're lumping together a load of bands who don't necessarily musically complement each other just because the thing they have in common is that they're all women? But then I understand other people who are going, well, I want to raise women's presence up in metal and rock. I want to make people aware. Here are all the brilliant women that I found. So I kind of, when it comes from a genuine place of people wanting to just show, because some people still do make dumb comments. I mean, Andy Copping from Download makes comments about,
we'll get to that.
but yeah, people make comments about there not being any women in metal. So when other people make these playlists of, women in metal, even if the bands don't all sound the same, I can see that they do mean it from a well-meaning place. So I do think it's like there's pros and cons to the whole female fronted tag. So yeah.
Sure. Would you want to see that kind of genre title kind of eradicated, really? Because it's female fronted, let's face it, it's not a genre.
No, I think that's the interesting thing, because like, to me, say 15 years ago, when you had the spate of symphonic metal bands with women at the front of them, like Nightwish with In Temptation Epica, and female fronted was used to describe that sound, I understood it more because the thing that separated it was the operatic, very feminine female vocal. So even though I still didn't really condone it, I could say, I understand that this is like highlighting more of a sound difference. But when it gets used to, then it gets just broadly applied to any band with a woman in it. Even bands where like the lady plays bass, they'll be like female fronted. It's like, she plays bass, she's not a person. But
yeah,
that's when it gets problematic, I think.
Yeah, it's like there's this band I know from Bristol who it's female fronted, and they said that they just got hit with the gothic label. It's like their music's not gothic at all. They didn't try to be gothic, but because female fronted vocalist, just slight aesthetic similarities to the gothic scene, that's just what they were labeled as. So they're now basically going back to the drawing board and making their band as heavy as they can just to get away from this label that's been thrown at them for no real good reason. So I think there are still plenty of labels that need to be addressed, really, in the heavy metal scene when it comes to women, really.
Yeah, definitely. And things like Powerplay Mag doing their dream lineup bands and having a separate category for the girl band and calling it Clitoris All Sorts doesn't help. Like, none of the guy bands were called, I don't know,
Dick slingers or something. So. Oh dear. Yeah, but I've got to commend you on you shining a spotlight on these issues in the past. We've referenced the whole download thing. So in those who don't know, the guy who books the bands for Download, I think it was 2019, said that like women prefer watching metal than playing in heavy metal, or some absolute bullshit like that, basically. And for those who don't know, what was your response?
Well, actually, all I did was take the quote, which was from, I think it was from a Guardian article, and share it on Twitter, and sort of explain how it's not great to have people in positions of power, such as your head booker for Download Festival, if they have this outdated belief or this kind of closed-mindedness that women don't exist in metal, because then how are women ever going to get on those main stages if they believe that they don't exist, kind of thing. And then I made my own Download poster, where every single band had a lady in it. And it was so easy. Again, like, there were bands I wanted to put on there that I couldn't even fit on there. So it was like dead easy. It was a great lineup. I would have gone to that Download with women in every band. So that was my response. And there's so much more I could say, but I've got
Yeah, yeah,
I
of course. It's, I was gonna say because it was not only you proved your point in the sense that you were able to fill a lineup with bands with female members, but not only that, so many amazing bands. Like that, it's like you didn't have to do any like deep cuts into like the underground and whatnot. Just so many incredible heavy metal bands with women in them. It's so absolutely proved your point in that regard. Then of course it went huge. Your response just went everywhere. Did that feel like a brave thing to do to put that out there in the first place?
I wasn't expecting it to do as well on Twitter as it did. I wasn't expecting subsequent articles in metal media to follow up from it. I'm really glad that I got the discussion rolling on the topic, and I'm glad, to have kind of highlighted an issue, but without saying too much, it has also had its consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting one.
So just to on that similar concept, just to swing back to Bloodstock. Of course, the person who books bands for Bloodstock is Vicky Hungerford. Um, do you think having a woman booking these bands makes things? Does that change the dynamic when you're trying to get into a festival? As a female musician, a female booker might look out for that kind of thing compared to Download, where it's a guy.
I would assume that it definitely helps. I mean, I don't know what Vicky Hungerford looks for in a band. I'm glad that she wanted to book Svalbard, and I'm super grateful. She actually came to us after the set and said she loved it as well, which was really,
Awesome.
really, yeah, really great. And you can just tell like how much passion she has for the festival and stuff like that. And I think with a festival like Bloodstock and Vicky booking the bands, they're just looking at pleasing the fans, aren't they? Like Bloodstock is a real fans festival, and
Sure.
they're going to give them what they think the fans want to see. But I would say that definitely, obviously, Vicky is not exclusionary in the same way that other festivals might have outdated attitudes. Like Vicky is obviously very encouraging to having women on the bill, which is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious, and you don't have to comment if you don't want to, but have Download ever asked you to play since that tweet went out?
Well, you can put two and two together here when I say this. He said, my tweet had consequences. Svalbard will never play Download.
Shit. Okay, well, there you go. That's me boycotting Download for the rest of time. But
Oh no,
uh,
you went Kiss and Iron Maiden for the millionth time.
yeah, no, it's fine. I can catch Iron Maiden at every other British festival. But that's that is. I mean, I'm not going to pry, obviously, but if I know what you're referring to there, that's a really scummy thing on their part. But not going to cause drama here. So, another thing that you have addressed in the past, we referred to it earlier, was Metal Hammer when they did a list called Metal's Most Interesting Voices Are All Female, brackets, It's About Time. Now, on the surface, that title could be seen as empowering, and we kind of talked about this earlier with the Spotify playlist thing. But yeah, it's just what do you feel is wrong with that kind of article?
I think my main issue with it was that the headline was deliberately ambiguous to make it sound like it was a kind of women versus guys thing. If you read through the article, there's a lot of comments like, oh, don't worry, guys, the women aren't going to steal your jobs and that kind of thing. And I think that's where it becomes problematic because it makes it sound like there's a gender war in metal when really it's like, no, we're all in it together. We're not like fighting the men and telling the guy vocalists to F off, you know what I mean? So that was, yeah. And the way that it was kind of written as voices, a lot of the fan base misread that as vocalists. And then
Right.
it's, I think, I'm not sure if you saw, but there was 1,500 comments on that article. And the majority of them were just saying women can't do metal vocals, you know, stop pandering, stop being white knights, this kind of thing. And I just felt the problem with that article was it was written to be as divisive as possible. I kind of liken Stephen Hill to being like the Piers Morgan of Metal Hammer. Like they keep him there because his articles, like the recent metalcore one that he wrote, which has since been taken down, because he's so divisive, it generates comments, it generates people talking about Metal Hammer, which in an age of people not buying print magazines is actually what you need in an online kind of thing. So that's basically what clickbait is about. It's about saying you're using women as fodder to generate I'm literally just quoting the words now, to generate comments and, you know, basically improve the reach of your online magazine. When I kind of viewed it as, if you really wanted to write, if they wanted to write a positive piece about how great women in metal are. And what was really interesting was the actual theme of the article was women's perspectives and voices in metal. So I think he was referring to like different lyrical stances. No women were interviewed for this piece. So it's like saying, oh, we value your voice so much, we're not even going to give you a chance to speak. We're just going to have some guy, we're just going to pay some guy to write about it for you.
So we value as far as your clicks can give us, basically, kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. Like I would have preferred that article a lot more had it been written by a woman and had all the bands mentioned been given a, you know, allowed to be given a quote and allowed to talk about their perspective and their, you know, you can't write an article about women's perspectives and not interview any of the women you're talking about, because now it's not women's perspectives, it's Stephen Hill's perspective. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember you saying back at Bloodstock, you called out, I think, was it, I might have been about the song Clickbait, but you called out people who bully and abuse each other on social media, online, that kind of thing. And I remember thinking, yeah, of course, many of us get cyberbullied. I can imagine being in a big band, you occasionally get trolls and whatnot, so good message and whatnot. And then when I was researching for this interview, I delved into those 2 times where you stood up for women in heavy metal, and I saw the level of abuse you were getting online, and it was absolutely horrifying to me, disgusted me to my core. And there was one response in particular to the download thing, which I'm not going to read, but it just made me sick to my stomach reading it. How the hell do you deal with that kind of thing?
I don't know if you may have noticed, but I've actually gone a lot quieter on social media. So in 2019, that was like peak. I was very outspoken about stuff, writing lots of kind of editorials about women in metal and all this kind of stuff, and the download thing. And then I received, I mean, it was literally getting to the point where it was like thousands, and I would get this kind of knot of anxiety every time I saw a new notification on my phone. And it was really, really taking its toll on my mental health. So I actually made like a kind of a conscious decision to be quieter on social media, which is kind of sad because it means the bullies in effect effectively have sort of won. But yeah, like it was just thousands and thousands of hate messages, rape threats, death threats, that kind of thing. And that's like not the stuff I was receiving in my DMs, which was worse. And I've just, yeah, kind of gone, I've sort of basically looked at the kind of the cost versus the benefit of speaking out about stuff online and gone, okay, I'm not really in a place where I'm strong enough to do that at the moment, so I'm just a bit quieter, and I'll save it for my lyrics instead.
Yeah, completely fair enough. I always like view like social media is 20%, you know, like catching up with people in a way that you can't when you're not face to face, and 80% just every toilet wall graffiti in the world, basically just cesspool of horrific shit. So I think the world would be a better place if we didn't have social media, but that's not a debate I'm going to get into here. But at the end of all of that, I still have to give you all the credit in the world for whatever period standing up for those very important messages regarding women in heavy metal. We'll lead out with something a bit more positive. You've got your new solo project, Noctule. and the album Wretched Abyss. And now, for those that don't know, it is an album, of course, inspired by Skyrim. So, where did the inspiration for that come from?
Well, it was lockdown, March 2020.
Of course,
Um,
it was just in your room playing Skyrim for hours on end.
Basically, yeah. I just lost my job, so I had a lot of free time on my hands suddenly, and I used that time to play guitar and play Skyrim, which it was heaven. It was just the best time. And yeah, I started writing these black metal riffs, and then I learned how to use Logic to record them. And I was getting them down, and then I think it was about 3 songs in. I hadn't recorded any vocals. I'd just sort of done the tracks. And I realized that I was being influenced by how much I was playing Skyrim, like the kind of epicness of Jeremy Soul's Skyrim soundtrack, the kind of the scenery, the atmosphere. I think Skyrim is a very black metal game as it is. And I just noticed that that was where my inspiration was coming from. So I decided to make my black metal album like a love letter to Skyrim. So that was, yeah, where it came from.
Yeah, wicked. It's a really cool album as well. Really, really cool. What's your go-to race in Skyrim?
Oh, Argonian.
Oh, that's my second choice. I'm
What's
normally dark elf.
Oh,
I
yeah,
like the destruction advantage.
yeah. I just
Yeah.
like being able to breathe underwater.
Where does that really come in Skyrim though? Let's be fair.
It doesn't. But then I picked Argonian like the first time, and then I just grew so attached to the Argonian. I mean, I do like being a mage as well, but they are squishy. So you've got to like,
Well, not you got your iron and stone flesh alteration skills that beef that respect up. We could talk about Elder Scrolls for hours, seriously. But in a similar vein to Elder Scrolls, I got so excited when I heard that you love power metal. So we adore power metal here at Crushing Sounds. Nightfall in Middle Earth by Blind Guardian is one of the greatest albums ever written. It just is. So what about power metal pulls you in as someone who's normally into the more extreme side of heavy metal?
I think for me, it's again similar to what I love about Skyrim. It's the world building, the epicness, the way that when you listen to a great power metal record, it's like being lost in a book, but a book with riffs. Like it's just the ultimate kind of like immersive high fantasy experience. And I think musically as well, because I'm really influenced by a lot of soundtracks and stuff as well. I love the kind of the symphonic layers of power metal, the guitar virtuosity. I remember someone once saying that musicians tend to be drawn to what they can't do, like they listen to what they can't do. So like Sammy from Employed to Serve loves Sun because he can't play slow. He can't play one note for 2 hours. And I guess maybe I'm drawn to power metal because I can't play like that. Like I listen to a band like Symphony X and my mind is just blown. I'm like, wow, how do they do it? Or like a band like Ord Ogan, where the songwriting is just so huge and incredible and catchy. And I go, wow, like again, I'm fascinated by how they create such multi-layered, like classical sounding music, but it's also super heavy, great energy as well. Like, I don't know, power metal to me is just joy, isn't it? It's just
Yeah,
joy in music.
yeah, definitely. Favorite power metal band?
Oh, ooh, oh God, no one's asked me this. Uh, that's a tough question because I know I'm going to answer it off the top of my head, and then I'm going to go, oh no, I don't actually. I'd probably say Symphony X, but then they're kind of a bit more progressive. I'm really, really into Ord Ogan at the moment. And I mean, Dragon Force are awesome as well. I was listening to Dragonland the other day. Have you ever listened to them?
I don't think so.
Oh, you should check them out. They're really, really epic as well. I
Yeah.
know I'm probably going to end up messaging you on Instagram because like a load more metal bands will pop into my head and I'll be like, ah, I can't believe I didn't say this. Please tell me.
Please do. Please do. I love it. If you've not checked them out, Brothers of Metal.
Oh my God, yes.
They are
Brazil.
fantastic band. So good. This is like them and Blind Guardian are for us to like The quintessential power metal bands, definitely. Okay, cool. So I won't keep you much longer. So we like to round these interviews off with like quick fire questions. So like you can think as quickly or as long as you like. You can elaborate if you want, or you can be as quick as you like. Basically, just some fun questions to see us through to the end. So first question, start off with the classic: Metallica versus Slayer.
Metallica.
I mean, obviously,
Uh,
my brother, my
oh, sorry.
that's all right. My brother's always voted Slayer, but you know.
Oh, funny Slayer story. I went to a Slayer signing in HMV when I was like 13 years old, and I was praising Jeff Hanneman on his guitar leads, and Kerry King leaned over and went, "What about me?"
Oh, that is a scoop and a half. That is the most Kerry King thing I've ever heard. Oh dear. Okay. Traditional metal versus modern metal.
Modern.
Oh, interesting. Fair enough. Most people go make a beeline for traditional. This one I'm keen to hear. Power metal versus black metal.
Oh my God. Oh no, how can you put me on the spot like this? I'm gonna say power metal.
Nice. Love it. Lord of the Rings versus A Song of Ice and Fire.
Ooh, Lord of the Rings.
So I don't like to acknowledge Game of Thrones at this point. It burned me because the ending is so bad. So we're just talking books. But yeah, Lord of the Rings definitely. I'm very excited for this one. Stormcloaks versus Imperial Legion.
God, no, I never picked because I feel I haven't actually like picked. I haven't completed the quest where you have to because I don't want to, because I'm like, the Stormcloaks are racist and the Imperials are conservatives, right? So
In a nutshell.
yeah, so I mean, if I had to pick, I'm going to be super shallow here. This is and say Stormcloaks because they're more attractive.
I mean, I'll take any reason. I'm always Stormcloaks because obviously Ulfric Stormcloak is a dickhead, but colonialization is never a good thing. So Skyrim belongs to the Nords, obviously, and Talos is definitely one of the 9 divines. See, we're back to Skyrim already. But anyway, next question. Mosh pit or standing at the barrier?
Standing at the barrier.
Fair enough.
Having a yeah, definitely a barrier gal.
So I always wonder if my mosh pitting days are behind me and then Creator headline Bloodstock and I was straight in that pit, but you know, Creator was so good. Favorite band / artist?
Nightwish / oh, I'm gonna pick 3. Nightwish, Avantasia, and Keep of Califon.
Fucking Avantasia are so good.
I love him so much.
I love Avantasia. Oh, he's a genius. He is a
Just about
genius.
Actually, can I go back and say Avantasia are my favorite power metal band? I mean, I suppose they're more of like they're like an opera metal, aren't they? It's
Yeah,
almost like it's like so elevated beyond power metal. But I mean, yeah, again, I listen to all of Tobias Sammet's work and I just go, how did he write these songs? They're like 12 minutes long and they never get boring. Like, it's amazing.
So good. Yeah, love Avantasia. My brother's gonna be so excited that you said that. We love Avantasia. So good. Your favorite movie?
How to Train Your Dragon.
Yes. Oh, I was not expecting that. That is perfect. I mean, again, on the power metal theme, we're back to dragons. So,
yeah.
One day I'll do one of these interviews and someone will say Fellowship of the Ring, but you know, that'll just be me forever, basically. So
Say that the band Fellowship. They've got to say Fellowship.
I caught them at Bloodstock. They were incredible. So I'll get them on the horn one day and we'll talk about Lord of the Rings for hours. It's going to be so good.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do a collaboration with them and Battleborn or something. It'll be so good. Next one, summer versus winter.
Winter. I prefer to be chilly. I don't like being warm.
I'm the exact opposite. I can't stand the cold. I absolutely hate it. Dear. Morning versus evening.
Evening.
Agreed. Night owl for the win. And final question. Favorite Svalbard song?
Clickbait.
I think Clickbait might be my favorite as well. So cool.
No way.
Love that track. Well, I love the whole of the new album basically, but I love the high melodic melody in Clickbait on the like reverb guitar bit. Really, really cool stuff. Love it. Anyway, so that's all we got time for. So thank you again so much, Serena, for joining me today. This has been a real moment for me. So thank you so much. And can I just say that this has probably been the most insightful talk I've ever had with a musician. It's just been a real pleasure to meet you today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. Your questions were great, so well researched, and it was super fun as well. And like, I loved chatting about Skyrim and power metal at the end, especially. Like, I had a great time. So we'd love to chat to you again.
Oh, thank you so much. So obviously I'll link down in the description below so people can check out all the Svalbard and Noctule's stuff so that people can go listen to your amazing music. And everyone watching, check out Svalbard's UK tour starting, I believe, in November. You can all look it up and find out for yourself. But go check out Svalbard, go listen to some amazing heavy metal. Thanks again, Serena, for joining me today. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.